That morning, Seth had been doing what a Federation inspector was supposed to, observing the war from a safe distance. Then he saw her, a Sci-fi woman, slipping beyond her village's defenses, heading toward the river in search of healing moss. His drones filled in the rest, a sick elder waiting for her return. She shouldn't have been there. Even the young males wouldn't take that risk. Yet she went without hesitation. Intrigued, Seth followed, his high-tech cloak rendering him a ghost among the trees. The ambush erupted without warning. One moment, the wind brushed through the tiger-striped red fur along her back. The next, 5 Hylar warriors emerged from the shadows, crystal-tipped arrows drawn. He didn't think, he moved. The thought of her dying without ever knowing why ignited something fierce inside him. In a heartbeat, he was between her and the hunters, arms wide, trusting his gear to stop what was coming. The arrows struck. His camouflage rippled under the impact, but his armor held. The Hylar force, unnerved by the phantom standing against them. Another volley, and still he didn't fall. They broke, vanishing into the woods. Silence. She stared at him, wide-eyed, shock etched across her furred face. Then warmth spread in his belly. Blood. His vision swam. The last thing he saw before the darkness claimed him was her gentle blue gaze, the warmth in the eyes of a predator, steady and unblinking, as if willing him to stay alive. Time passed and consciousness returned in fragments. First came the pain, sharp lines of fire across his chest and arms. Then the dizziness, a nauseating spin that made him grateful he was lying down. Seth forced his eyes open, blinking against the dim light. The first thing he noticed was his own body. Gone was every piece of Federation gear. The armor that had saved his life, the camouflage projector, the emergency beacon. He lay bare on what felt like woven grass. His pale human skin marked with a dozen angry wounds where the crystal tips had found gaps in his protection. Dark blood had dried in streaks down his torso, and fresh red still seeped from the deepest gash along his ribs. The second thing he noticed was the shelter. Rough wooden walls surrounded him, gaps between the logs stuffed with dried moss. A single weak candle flickered beside his improvised bed, casting moving shadows across the crude but sturdy construction. Tools hung from pegs on the walls, simple hunting knives, rope, dried herbs in bundles. This wasn't a temporary structure. Someone had built this to last. The third thing he saw was her. The Sci-fi woman sat with her back to him, and Seth found himself transfixed by the sight. Her fur was a deep russet red, darker than autumn leaves, with black tiger stripes running from her shoulders down to where her spine met her tail. The tail itself was magnificent, thick and powerful at the base, tapering to a point that flexed occasionally as she worked. Their species needed no clothing. Her fur covered her completely, though he could see the powerful muscles beneath, shifting as she moved. Her hands, pawed but with opposable thumbs, worked methodically, crushing something in a clay bowl with a smooth stone. The soft scraping sound filled the quiet shelter. She was larger than a human woman would be, perhaps 6.5 feet if she stood. Her ears, pointed and tufted with black fur, swiveled independently, tracking sounds he couldn't hear. When she paused to look out the small window, he could see her profile, a face that was neither human nor truly feline, but something uniquely its own. Her muzzle was shorter than a cat's, her forehead higher, allowing for the larger brain that sapience required. Through the window beyond her, he could see only forest, dark trees and undergrowth. They were still far from her village. Seth tried to sit up, his muscles protesting the movement. The world tilted dangerously. "Don't!" Her voice came out as a low growl that his neural implant translated smoothly. She turned to face him fully, and those blue eyes, bright as glacier ice against her red fur, pinned him in place. "You lost blood. You move. You die.
Simple.
The implant was working perfectly, not only translating her words, but adjusting his mouth and throat to form words in her language when he spoke. I need to... The words came out in her language, a series of purrs and clicks that felt strange on his tongue.
You need to lie still.
She abandoned her mortar and pestle, padding over to him on silent feet. Up close, he could see the fine details of her face, the white fur around her muzzle, the delicate whiskers, the intelligence burning in those blue eyes.
I thought you were a ghost. The stories say humans are ghosts that come from the sky, but ghosts don't bleed.
She reached out, one claw extending to hover just above a wound on his chest.
Ghosts don't have weight that makes the floor creak when they fall.
How long was I unconscious?
Since the morning. You're heavy. Took me most of the day to drag you here.
She tilted her head, studying him with predator's focus.
Your skin is so pale, like the hylar, but softer, weaker. How are you alive?
I had protection, armor.
The hard shell you wore? I hid it. The others can't know about you. They'd think you were working with the hylar. They won't believe you saved me.
Her lips pulled back slightly, revealing fangs.
The fair-skinned devils who killed my family.
Seth watched her return to her work, noting the tension in her shoulders when she spoke of the hylar. He knew the truth, had studied it extensively before his assignment. This planet was an anomaly in the Federation's records, a world where two sapient species had evolved on different continents. The Sci-fi on the eastern landmass, the hylar on the western. For millennia, the ocean had kept them apart. Then the hylar developed sailing technology, and the inevitable had begun. First contact had led to trade to disputes, disputes to war. Neither species had been prepared for the other's existence.
My name is Zihara,
she said suddenly, not looking at him.
And you will stay in that bed until I say otherwise.
Seth, he offered, and I really should...
No,
she turned, fixing him with a stare that brooked no argument.
This is my family's hunting shelter, from before the war, when we could hunt freely. No one comes here anymore. You're safe, but only if you don't move and tear open those wounds again.
The hylar, Seth began carefully. They're not devils, they're just different, like your people are different from mine. Her head snapped around so fast he thought she might strike him. In 2 swift steps, she was beside him, one clawed hand tracing a path from his neck down to his belly, following the line of wounds. Her touch was gentle, but he could feel the deadly potential in those claws.
How can you say that? Her voice shook. After what they did to you, they tried to kill you.
They were scared. I appeared out of nowhere.
They're murderers.
The word came out like a hiss.
All of them.
Seth wanted to retrieve his gear, to call for extraction. He tried again to sit up, but Zihara's hand pressed him firmly against his chest, pushing him back down. The strength in that single arm was humbling.
I promise, she said, her voice softer now. I will heal you. My people have ways, old ways, but you must stay still.
He wanted to tell her that was impossible, that he needed proper medical attention, antibiotics, surgical treatment, but something in her absolute certainty made him pause. You don't understand, Seth said, trying again to explain. I come from the sky, from beyond your world. We have medicine that can heal these wounds in days, not weeks. Zahara continued grinding her herbs, adding drops of something that smelled sharp and green.
The sky is the realm of spirits and ghosts, your flesh and blood.
There are other worlds beyond the sky, places where people like me live. We travel between them in great ships. She paused, considering this.
Like the hylar travel between lands in their boats?
Similar, but much farther. He winced as a particularly deep wound throbbed.
Please, if you could just bring me my equipment. Your sky magic didn't stop you from bleeding, she pointed out. Didn't stop the arrows from finding flesh.
The armor worked. It's just...
It failed.
She turned to face him fully,
You trust your sky magic. I trust the old ways, the ways that have kept my people alive since before memory. Sahara, you know nothing of what we can do, she interrupted. There was pride in her voice now. You think because we don't have your sky ships that we're primitive, but nature blessed us differently. Tonight, you'll see. I can heal you overnight, Zahara insisted, her tail swishing with confidence. One night, and every wound will be closed, every poison drawn out. Seth couldn't hide his skepticism. That's not possible. Even with our medicine, wounds like these take time. Because your medicine works against nature, not with it. She held up the bowl she'd been working with. The paste inside glowed faintly green in the candlelight. The moss you saw me gathering, it only grows where the river meets the sacred stones. It holds the essence of life itself. My grandmother's grandmother knew its secrets, and she passed them on to her daughter, and so on to me. Moss can't. Your flying between worlds shouldn't be possible either, yet here you are. She smiled, and it was strange how the expression translated across species. The moss rebuilds what's broken. It knows the pattern of life and follows it. Mix it with the right herbs. Prepare it the right way. Apply it properly. She trailed off, looking at the paste with satisfaction. By morning, you'll be whole. Apply it properly? Her ears flicked forward. Amusement. He was learning. The old ways are specific. The healer must be the conduit. The moss works through living touch, not dead tools. Seth wanted to argue, to explain about bacteria and infection and the danger of non-sterile treatment, but he was trapped here, weakened by blood loss, and the certainty in her voice was oddly compelling. Besides, he realized with grim humor, if their positions were reversed and he was telling her about antibiotics and synthetic skin grafts, would she believe him? I'm ready, Sahara announced, setting the bowl beside his makeshift bed. The paste inside had taken on an almost luminescent property, swirling with its own subtle light. Maybe we should wait, Seth suggested, a sudden nervousness gripping him. If you could just get my gear, I could... She didn't respond. Instead, she dipped her fingers into the bowl and then, to his shock, brought them to her mouth. But she didn't swallow. Her cheeks bulged slightly as she held the mixture in her mouth, and Seth's confusion must have shown on his face, because her ears flicked with what he was beginning to recognize as amusement. What are you... His words died as she moved. With the typical feline grace, she positioned herself above him, her knees on either side of his hips, careful not to put weight on his injuries. This close, he could feel the heat radiating from her body through her fur, could see the individual strands of white around her muzzle. Her face descended toward his, and he finally understood her intention. Wait, she paused, her face inches from his neck, and when she spoke, her voice was slightly muffled by the liquid she held. Trust. Then her rough tongue, coated with the moss mixture, traced the long gash on his neck. The sensation was indescribable. Her tongue was rougher than a human's, but not unpleasant, and the mixture tingled against his skin, warm and somehow alive. The concoction seemed to sink into the wound immediately, and he could swear he felt something happening. Cells responding, tissues reaching for each other. She pulled back slightly, swallowing the remainder of the mixture before speaking. Your blood tastes different. Red, like ours, but something else. Something that speaks of far places. This is incredibly dangerous, Seth managed, his scientific mind warring with the undeniable sensation of healing. The bacteria are No one has ever died under my care, she said firmly, already taking another mouthful of the mixture, and you won't be the first. She lowered her head to his chest, her tongue finding the next wound. This time, he was prepared for the sensation. The rough texture, the tingling warmth, the impossible feeling of flesh knitting together. Her fur brushed against his skin as she worked, soft and warm, and he found himself relaxing despite the dangerous situation. Do you have to apply it this way?
Seth asked as she prepared another mouthful, his voice not quite steady. The treatment seemed to be working. He could vaguely feel it, but the intimacy of the process was affecting him in ways he hadn't anticipated. She paused, considering. "No," she admitted, her tail curling with what might have been mischief. "I could use cloth, or my hands alone, but this way is better." "Better how?" "Better for healing," she said. Then her ears flicked forward. "And better for me. You intrigue me, Sky Walker. You stepped between me and death without knowing me. You speak of impossible places beyond the clouds. If I just heal you, you might leave before I learn your secrets." "So this is imprisonment?" He tried to sound offended, but the warmth spreading throughout his body made it difficult. "This is negotiation." She licked another wound, this one along his ribs, and he couldn't suppress a shiver. "I make you feel good, take away your pain, and heal you. You perhaps share your knowledge. Fair trade?" "And if I refuse?" She pulled back to look at him, and there was something predatory in her smile. "Then I suppose I should let you go. How strong are you feeling, Skywalker?" He laughed, then winced as it pulled at his injuries. "Not very." "Then be still and let me work." She continued her ministrations, moving methodically from wound to wound. The shelter filled with quiet sounds, the crackle of the candle, the rustle of her fur, his occasional sharp intake of breath when she found a particularly sensitive spot. Outside, night insects began their chorus. "Your saliva," he said suddenly, understanding dawning. "I think it has analgesic properties, pain-blocking compounds." Her ears swiveled toward him. "Is that your sky magic speaking?" "It's science, biology. Your species evolved to heal with your mouth because—" He paused, thinking, trying to understand her. "Because you groom each other, social bonding through healing." "We care for our pack," she agreed, working on a gash near his hip. "The stronger the bond, the stronger the healing. Mates can heal wounds that would kill others." The implication of that statement lingered in the air between them. By the time she finished with the last wound, the candle had burned low. Seth's entire body tingled with the moss energy, and the pain had faded to a distant memory. He felt strange, not weak exactly, but altered, as if her treatment had changed him on some fundamental level. Sahara blew out the candle, plunging the shelter into darkness. He heard her moving, then felt the bed shift as she settled beside him. Her body pressed against his side, her fur impossibly soft, her warmth enveloping him. "What are you doing?" His voice came out rougher than intended. "You have no fur," she said simply. "The night is cold. You need warmth to complete the healing." She arranged herself carefully, one arm draped across his chest, avoiding the treated wounds. Her breath rustled against his neck, and he could feel her heart beating, faster than a human's, but steady and strong. "All the wounds feel warm," he murmured, surprised. "Warm, but not painful." "The moss knows its work. By morning you'll be whole." She shifted slightly, getting comfortable. "My saliva helps too. Stops pain, prevents infection, speeds healing. We're not helpless, Skywalker. We don't need your magic." "I'm beginning to see that." He hesitated, then asked, "Is this normal, sleeping like this with someone you just met?" Her tail curled around his leg, and he could hear the smile in her voice. "Only mated pairs share warmth like this. But I don't have much choice, do I? All the males my age died in the war. The young ones are too young, and the old ones too set in their ways." She paused. "You're strange and pale and furless, but you stood between me and death. It makes me feel strange." Seth found himself acutely aware of every point where their bodies touched. Despite her alien nature, or perhaps because of it, there was something undeniably intimate about the moment. She was a predator, built for hunting and killing, yet here she was, holding him gently through the night. "The irony," he said quietly. "What irony?" "You're a healer, but Everything about you speaks of a predator. The claws, the fangs, the strength. Yet here I am, trusting you completely." She was quiet for a moment, then her arm tightened slightly around him.
"You would prefer I was prey?" "No," he admitted. "I don't think I would." "Good, because tomorrow, when you're healed, we have much to discuss. About your sky places, about the war, about why you really saved me."
Her breath grew slower, deeper.
"But tonight, just heal. Let the moss do its work and nature follow its ways."
Seth lay in the darkness, surrounded by her warmth, feeling the impossible healing continuing in his flesh. He should have been terrified. Infected wounds, alien medicine, a predator's embrace. Instead, he found himself relaxing into her hold, his body accepting what his mind still questioned. The consequences would indeed be a problem for tomorrow, if he survived the night. But as sleep began to claim him, feeling her protective presence around him, he realized he wasn't entirely opposed to becoming her prey, if that's what this was, and he wasn't misinterpreting anything. There were worse fates than being claimed by someone who'd risk everything to heal a stranger from the stars. Her breathing deepened into sleep, and he let himself drift. The moss's work continuing through the night, knitting flesh and perhaps something more. Morning came with sunlight streaming through the shelter's small window and the shocking realization that the bed beside him was empty. Seth sat up, quickly, too quickly, expecting pain that never came, and found himself alone. The warmth where Zahara had lain was already fading, leaving only the lingering scent of her fur, something like cinnamon and soil mixed together. Had she thought better of it? The intimacy of the night before seemed almost dreamlike now. Perhaps she'd realized the craziness of her behavior, healing a stranger, sharing warmth with an alien being, and had fled back to her village. The thought left an unexpected hollow feeling in his chest. Then he looked down at himself, and all other thoughts fled. His body was covered in scars. Silver-white lines traced across his chest, arms, and torso, where yesterday there had been gaping wounds. He ran his fingers along them, marveling at the smooth, completely healed tissue. Not a drop of blood, not even a scab. The deepest wound, the one along his ribs that should have taken weeks to heal properly, was now just another pale line on his skin. "She really healed me," he whispered, still in Zahara's language. He'd seen advanced medical technology throughout the Federation, regenerative nanobots, synthetic tissue grafts, accelerated cellular reconstruction. None of it worked this fast. None of it left the patient feeling this whole. He felt better than he had before the injury, as if the moss in her saliva hadn't just healed him, but had somehow optimized his body in the process. The implications hit him hard. The Federation had classified this world as a Level 1 developing civilization, two primitive species locked in inevitable conflict. The debates had raged for months in the council chambers. Should they intervene? Separate the species? Let nature take its course? In the end, they'd settled on observation only, minimal interference, wait for one or both species to either destroy themselves or achieve sufficient technological advancement for first contact. But this healing, this changed a lot. A biological compound that could heal traumatic injuries overnight? The Federation's medical corps would pay entire planetary GDPs for such a thing. The military applications alone would spark bidding wars between systems. And if there were other compounds, other blessings from nature, as Zahara had called them, Seth's blood ran cold. If this information got out, her people wouldn't be protected under developing species protocols. They might be classified as a biological resource. The planet would be exploited for its miracles. The Scivery and Hylar either aggressively pressured for their knowledge or pushed aside as inconvenient obstacles. He grabbed a rough cloth from the floor, wrapping it around his waist as he tried to think. He needed to retrieve his gear, but more importantly, he needed to figure out how to protect. The door opened, and Zahara padded in, Seth's armor bundled under one arm and something small and furry dangling from her mouth. She dropped both, and the small creature, something like a rabbit but with too many legs, struggled once before going still.
"Breakfast,"
she announced cheerfully, then looked at him with amusement.
"Why are you wrapped in cleaning rags? You're embarrassed,"
Sahara observed, her ears forward with interest as Seth fumbled with his armor's undersuit.
"Your kind is just like the Hylar and hides your bodies even from each other."
"It's complicated," Seth muttered, turning slightly away as he pulled on the form-fitting garment. "We're not covered in fur like you. We need protection from the elements."
"The elements are inside a warm shelter," she pointed out,
settling cross-legged on the floor to watch him dress. There wasn't the slightest hint of shame or embarrassment in her posture.
"Your people must be very fragile."
"We're not fragile, just different." She tilted her head, studying him with those bright blue eyes.
"Your form isn't that strange. A bit too upright, perhaps, and those long legs seem impractical for forest movement. But without the fur—"
She made a purring sound he was learning meant amusement.
"You look like a cub, helpless and soft. It's actually quite cute."
Seth felt the heat rise to his face. Another human trait that probably didn't translate across species. "I'm not helpless."
"You needed me to heal you, warm you, and bring you food,"
she counted on her clawed fingers.
"If that's not helpless, what is?"
He wanted to argue, but she had a point. Finally secured in his undersuit, he began attaching the armor pieces, feeling more himself with each click and seal. The familiar weight of technology around him was reassuring, even if most of its systems were still offline from the Hylar arrows.
"Better?"
Sahara asked, and there was something almost disappointed in her tone. "More proper," he agreed, then hesitated with his hand over the emergency communicator. One signal and an extraction team would arrive within hours. They'd want to know everything. Medical scans would reveal the impossible healing. Questions would be asked. Reports would be filed. And Zahara's world would never be the same. "We need to talk," Seth said, lowering his hand from the communicator without activating it. "About your moss, about what your people can do." Zahara was already working on the creature she'd caught, her claws making quick work of the preparation.
"What about it? It healed you, as I said it would."
"It's not just that it healed me, it's how fast, how completely." He sat across from her, choosing his words carefully. "My people, the Federation, we don't have anything like this. We can heal, but it takes time, machines, complicated procedures."
"So your sky magic isn't as powerful as you thought,"
she said with satisfaction. "That's the problem. It means your moss is incredibly valuable. People would want it. Many people. Powerful people." She paused in her work, looking at him with confusion.
"The moss grows by the sacred stones. Anyone who needs it can gather it."
"No, you don't understand. There are billions of beings out there on thousands of worlds. If they knew about your moss, about what your people can do," he struggled to find concepts she could grasp, "they would come here. They would take it all. They might take your people too, to learn your secrets."
"Like the Hylar take our hunting grounds?"
"Worse. Much worse. You have no idea how worse." She considered this, then returned to preparing the meal.
"Then we won't tell them about the moss."
"It's not that simple. I know now. My equipment probably recorded some of it. If I go back—"
"Then don't go back."
She said it simply, as if it were the easiest thing in the world. "Tell me about your people's knowledge," Seth said, watching her work. "The moss that heals. Are there other plants like that?"
"Many," she said, separating meat with her claws. "Each family keeps some secrets, passes them down. There's bitter root that makes you strong for a full day. Warriors used to chew it before battle, though it leaves you weak as a cub after. There's the silver berries that stop a life from starting in a female's womb. Then the red seeds that helps a life to form in a female's womb."
"What else?" She looked up at him, perhaps sensing the intensity in his voice.
"There are stories of others, Plants that make thoughts flow like water, let you solve any puzzle. Flowers that sharpen your eyes until you can see a mouse from a mountaintop. Bark that lets you hear whispers from the next valley. But those are old stories. I don't know much about them.
Seth's mind raced. Cognitive enhancers, sensory amplifiers. Every single thing she described would revolutionize medicine, military applications, even space exploration.
Are you afraid?
Zahara observed.
Yes,
he admitted. If they know what your world has, they'll come for it.
Then I can convince you to teach my people your sky magic first, she said pragmatically. Learn to defend ourselves before they come for us.
That would take generations, and I'm not supposed to... He stopped. He'd already broken a dozen protocols just by speaking with her, teaching her about space travel, about other worlds, about the Federation itself. Each word was another crime, a violation of the non-interference directive.
Not supposed to what?
Teach you. Any of this. I'm supposed to observe, nothing more. She looked at him with those predator's eyes, and he saw intelligence there that the Federation had completely underestimated.
But you stepped in front of arrows for me. You were already not observing.
You should cook that, Seth said, gesturing at the meat she was cutting into strips.
Why? Fresh is better. The blood carries strength.
Cooking kills harmful bacteria, tiny creatures that can make you sick. She looked skeptical.
Tiny creatures we can't see? More sky magic?
Not magic, science. Here, let me show you. He activated one of his suit's still functional systems, projecting a holographic display of magnified bacteria. Zahara jumped back, fur bristling.
What sorcery is this?
Not sorcery, just making small things look bigger. These tiny creatures live on everything. Most are harmless, some are helpful, but others can make you sick. Fire kills them. She approached the projection cautiously, reaching out to touch it and watching her hand pass through.
These live on meat?
On everything. But cooking...
I've eaten raw meat my whole life. Never been sick from it.
Your body is adapted to it. Mine isn't. She sighed dramatically.
Fragile and helpless. I'm almost reconsidering taking you as a mate.
Seth nearly choked.
Mate? What else would you be? You saved my life, I saved yours. We shared warmth through the night. My scent is on you, yours on me.
She said it as matter-of-factly, as if discussing the weather.
Though you'd need to prove yourself to the clan first. Can you hunt?
That's not... We barely know each other.
You almost died for me. That tells me everything important.
She built a small fire, apparently willing to humor his cooking request.
The rest is just details.
They spent the day in the shelter, and it became an exchange of worlds. Seth did his best to explain the Federation, using his suit's projections to show her star maps, images of different species, the great ships that sailed between stars. She absorbed it all with that sharp intelligence, asking questions that cut to the heart of things.
So, these Federation people, they rule all the sky worlds?
Not rule, exactly. It's more like a gathering. Each world governs itself, but they work together for trade, protection, exploration.
Like the clan gatherings before the war. Each family their own, but coming together for big decisions.
Yes, exactly like that. In return, she told him about her world. The seasonal patterns that govern the moss growth. The sacred sites her people protected. The oral histories that went back 1,000 generations. She showed him her knowledge of the forest, identifying plants and their uses with the same precision he'd use for stellar navigation. "Your people have no written language?" he asked.
Marks on dead things? Why? Memory is alive. It changes, grows, learns. Marks are dead the moment they're made.
It was a perspective he'd never considered. That was becoming way too common ever since he met her. Zahara's people carried their knowledge in living memory, each generation adding to and refining what came before. As the day wore on, he found himself dreading the moment he'd have to make a decision. Return to the Federation and risk exposing her world, or... Evening had painted the shelter in an orange light when Zahara finally asked the question he'd been dreading.
So, what will you do? Signal your sky people?
Seth looked at the communicator on his belt. If I do, they'll come. They'll ask questions. They'll want to know about the healing.
And you'll tell them?
I'd try not to, but they have ways of finding out. Scans, tests, analysis of my body chemistry. They'd know something impossible happened here. She was quiet for a moment, then stood with fluid grace.
Then we make you disappear. What? You said they think you're primitive, helpless against the forest. So the forest ate you.
She gestured at his armor.
Take it off, all of it. The underskin, too. Zahara, they'll look for you, yes? Look for your shell, your sky magic tools. We'll give them something to find. Make it look like a big hunter got you.
Seth stared at her. You want to fake my death?
Unless you have a better idea. You can't go back. You said so yourself. You can't stay here alone. You're too helpless. So you come with me to my village. Live there, teach us about the sky worlds, prepare us for when your federation comes calling.
Your people would never accept me.
They will if I say you're my mate, and you saved me.
The word hung between them again, heavier this time. Seth found himself considering it seriously. Stay here on this world that the Federation had written off as primitive, teach them, prepare them, protect them from what was coming. Why? He asked finally. Why do you trust me? I could be lying about everything. I could be planning to betray your people, steal your secrets. She looked away, her tail moving around, the first sign of uncertainty he'd seen from her.
Take off the shell. We need to dispose of it tonight.
Zahara, answer me. Why do you trust me? She was already moving toward the door.
Because it needs to be done. A predator needs to.
He caught her arm gently. The real reason. She turned to face him, and those blue eyes held something vulnerable.
Because my instincts tell me truth from lies. It's how we hunt, how we survive. And my instincts say you're capable of deep bonding. That once you choose a side, you'll defend it until death. You already proved that with the arrows.
And? Her ears flattened slightly.
And because when you saved me, when you looked at me as you fell, I saw recognition. You knew me, even though we'd never met. The same way I knew you when I saw you bleeding. My grandmother would say the spirits decided before we were born.
Seth felt something shift in his chest, a settling into place of a decision he'd already made without realizing it. You're right. About all of it.
Then strip. We have work to do.
An hour later, his armor was scattered convincingly through the forest, torn and bloodied. He kept several useful tools, but his undersuit was shredded and eaten by a big hunter. The emergency beacon was left active but damaged, telling a clear story. Attacked, dragged off, consumed. The data recorder he destroyed completely, melting it into a slag with his suit's emergency thermal charge.
Your sky people will come looking?
Zahara asked, watching the smoke rise from the destroyed device. Within days, they'll scan the area, find the evidence, write their reports. Inspector Seth Carver, killed in action while observing primitive species conflict.
And then?
And then they'll continue observing, perhaps just from orbit. Maybe in 50 years, maybe 100, they'll make official contact. By then,
we'll be ready,
she finished.
Thanks to you.
They stood together in the gathering darkness, two beings from different worlds who'd found each other through violence and healing. Tomorrow would bring challenges, introducing him to her clan, maintaining his cover, teaching her people enough to protect themselves without violating every principle he'd ever been trained to uphold. But those were tomorrow's problems.
So,
Zahara said, taking his hand in her furred one, her claws carefully sheathed.
Ready to meet your new family?
Seth squeezed her hand, feeling the strength there, the warmth. There's one thing first. The Hylar, they're not your enemies, not really. They're just another people trying to survive. If your species is going to face the Federation in the negotiation table, you'll need to be united. She bristled.
They killed my family.
And your people killed theirs. It's war. But war with the Federation wouldn't be war, it would be extinction, for both of you. She was quiet for a long moment, then sighed.
You'll teach us about them too? These not devils?
Everything I know.
Then we go. But if the clan elders challenge you, you have to fight. Prove you're worthy of being my mate.
Fight? I thought we established I'm helpless. Her laugh was like a purr.
I know you have some tricks, Skywalker.
As they walked through the darkening forest toward her village, Seth thought about the Federation ship that would arrive soon, the investigation that would follow, the reports that would be filed. The irony wasn't lost on him. He'd come to study a primitive conflict and instead discovered a civilization that had more to offer the galaxy than they were prepared to handle. Humanity might understand better than the Federation. Direct contact with Earth, bypassing the Federation. It was a thought for another day. For now, he had a village to convince, a mate to prove himself worthy of, and two species to somehow prepare for a future that was coming, whether they were ready or not.
Stop thinking so loud,
Zahara said, nudging him with her shoulder.
Tonight, you'll just need to survive meeting my aunt. She eats males who disappoint her.
That's a joke, right? Her silence was not reassuring. But as they approached the lights of her village, Seth found himself smiling. He'd thrown away everything, his career, his citizenship in the Federation, possibly his freedom if they ever discovered the truth. And yet, walking beside this remarkable being who'd saved him in every way that mattered, he couldn't bring himself to regret it. The reward, he thought, as Zahara's hand found his in the darkness, was worth every scar.